On here. So, all right, we are recording. So I just want to thank you guys for being here tonight and coming on. This is Coach Carrillo and I talked about doing a recruiting call for your guys' team because as you guys move up into 16s, it's important for you guys to have some sort of game plan. And so, you know, for those that don't know me, I'm Charlie Pikus, the president of All American Teams, but I'm also one of our 18U coaches and have been in your guys' shoes as a parent as well. So, and my daughter's been in your shoes, the players that are on here. So we've put together a little presentation that hopefully will give you guys some guidance and some direction. And then also we'll have some time at the end for some questions. Like I said, I am recording this, so I'm going to send Coach Eddie the link once I get it all done and post it up to our private YouTube page. So that way, if there's parts of this you want to go back to, you can. I know, like I was telling him, one of my last slides has a bunch of good questions the girls can have for when they talk to coaches. So you'll definitely want to use that one. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and get us started, and please forgive all the open tabs. For those that don't know, I'm also a high school athletics and activities director, so my days are kind of busy. All right, so getting started, first of all, why we're all here, and I apologize to Rochelle and my own daughter. I don't have very many schools on this picture outside of California, but let's be honest, the reason that we are doing this, a lot of it is so that we can try and find a place to play beyond high school. So I appreciate that you guys are here taking the time, wanting to get some information to hopefully help you pursue those dreams. To me, the bottom of that picture, those are two of the things that I would hope most people are dreaming about. Is number one, to maybe find a school that gives you a chance to win a national title. That's the coolest thing, is to be able to hopefully hold that trophy at the end of a season. And the other part right next to that is the most important part of what you guys are chasing, and that's to get that degree. So keep that in mind. All these school logos are really cool. It's fun to wear, Stanford on the front of a jersey, but at the end of the day, it's about you guys finding the place that's going to give you the best chance to play and a chance to walk out of there in 4 or 5 years with some sort of degree. So before we get started, just a couple of kind of reality check moments for us all. If you're doing this so that you can say one day you're getting, you get to play for University of Oregon, and you're not doing it because you're trying to find the place that gives you the best chance to succeed on the field, in the classroom, to have a enjoyable experience, and you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. One of the things that we've done with our team a couple seasons ago was we had one-on-one, back when COVID started, we had one-on-one Zoom calls with each family to kind of figure out what it is that they were looking for. Because you guys as a family need to be honest, but you players that are on here, you need to get your voices heard. If the most important thing to you is finding a campus that's 10 minutes from the beach, you need to be honest about that. That's going to limit, obviously, where you're looking. If your main objective is to make sure that other than softball, you get to go out and, tailgate before every big football game because they have a great football team. Those are things that are important, because this is about your life on the campus and what you're looking for. And you got to remember, you guys, you're trying to actually impress a coach enough that they're going to be willing to invest, their funding to have you come to their school. And so the other thing is, during this process, you're probably going to hear more advice than you really even care to hear. And you have to keep in mind, a lot of people just mean well, but they don't understand the entire process. So keep that in mind when people are reaching out. If you do have questions, you can ask Coach Eddie, you can ask me, Coach Debbie. The beautiful part about All American is there are a ton of resources here at your guys' fingertips. And then some personal little reminders. Number one, it's important when we get into this recruiting process, which obviously Rochelle's going to be further along than the rest of this group. But as you guys get started on it, you really do have to check your ego at the door. Everybody grows up wanting to play for Alabama, wanting to play for UCLA, but you got to be able to set your ego aside and say, you know what, I need to be open to everything, because a lot of times you get so set on one thing that you miss other opportunities. And then players that are on here, this isn't just your parents sending you to the right camps and you being on the right teams. You guys are going to learn by the end of this that you need to be very active in this process as well. And for those of you that are not into your junior year yet, this is going to be probably the most stressful year, 2 years until you become a junior, because almost everything you do, you're not going to get answers to. You're not going to know if that school likes you. You're not going to know if that school wants you, because they can't tell you until June 1st of your, or September 1st of your junior year. So keeping that in mind. So just a little perspective before we start talking about some of the things that, we want to help you guys do in the process. So a last little reality reminder, every single grad year. So, if you're a 24 on the call, or if you're a 25 and are 123, if you have hopes of playing D1, just keep in mind that in the entire country, there's about 1,300 kids in your grade level that get recruited to play D1 in a calendar year. So, when you're going out to the Colorado tournament and there's 1,000 teams out there, okay, so you're talking almost 15 to 20,000 athletes. Remember that out of each grade level, only 1,300 of them are going to get a chance to be recruited to play D1. So that kind of puts the numbers in perspective. I'm a numbers guy. The other part is, remember, about 5% of high school softball players go on to play college. So at the end of the day, you guys, you got to be good. But, there are different spots and different places that people can fit into. So I like to put this map up first. Anybody want to try and guess what this is a map of?
All the colleges, D1 colleges.
Yep, perfect. So this is a map, and of course D1 gets all fancy. They put the logos everywhere. Any of the players on the call, what do you guys notice about this map? Or parents, if you want to chime in too, what do you guys notice?
Mostly on the East Coast.
Somebody else was going to chime in too. Is that what you were going to say too?
Maggie.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah. So, it's great to have Division I dreams. And you know what? Until somebody says, hey, you know what, you're not going to play Division I, keep those dreams going. But the biggest thing that I've learned, over the last 20 plus years is, if you want to play Division I, you're going to have a better chance if you're okay leaving the state of California. And you can see just how many more opportunities are outside of our state than there are in it. So here's a map of Division II. Again, a lot of things, a lot of opportunities take place out on the East Coast. Division II does have a little bit more in the middle of the country, but as you can see, it's still, if you want to play in college and you're willing to open your mind up to leave, the nest and go outside the state, you're going to have a lot more opportunities. Division III, you better like cold weather or Southern California, because most of it is up in the Northeast. And I couldn't get the same type of map for NAIA, which is another division, but you can see by those numbers, again, there's a lot in SoCal, and then there's a lot basically east of Colorado. So, if you are wanting to play college softball, one of the things that you have to ask yourself is, am I willing to leave the state of California? So let's talk about those different divisions that I just put up there. so NCAA Division I and NCAA Division II, in order for you to be able to play at that level, you guys that are in high school right now, you got to make sure if you're going to be a D1 athlete, you take your 4 years of English, 3 years of math, all that good stuff that honestly your counselors should be able to help guide you through. And if I'm you guys, one of the things that you may start doing as a freshman or sophomore is go in and talk to your counselor and just let them know, hey, I have hopes and dreams of playing softball in college. Can you make sure that I'm taking the right classes? And then the other thing down there at the bottom for Division I and II is earning at least a 2.3 for Division I and a 2.2 for Division II. And then it depends on your GPA and your SAT or ACT score. It's called a sliding scale. So those of you that aren't great test takers, if you have a higher GPA, you don't need such a high SAT or ACT score. So it's important to work on keeping your grades up. The other thing, on our call the other night with one of the other teams, they asked a good question. It says 2.3 to play D1, but if I have 2 kids that are really good and one has a 2.3 and the other has a 3.8, I'm going to go with the 3.8 kid because I have to understand and know as a coach that when we start traveling a lot, when we start getting into season, they're going to have the ability to keep their grades up a lot better than somebody pushing a 2.3. So even though that minimum is there, don't look at that as a good, standard to set yourself. I would always aim higher. So that's Division I and II. Division III, those are a lot of private schools. Those are high academic schools. They do not offer athletic scholarships, and they set their own academic admission standards. A little tougher to get into those. NAI, which is, many people feel it's almost like NCAA Division IV, but I've seen a lot of NAI teams and they could beat some D2 teams and battle some D1 teams. And the beautiful part that I want you guys to all understand, all 4 of these levels have national championships. So even though we only see ESPN showing the D1, Division II, III, and NAI, they all have a huge, national tournament that culminates into their own World Series. So at the NAI level, all you have to do to get into those schools is meet 2 of these 3 requirements. An ACT score of 18 or SAT of 970, a minimum 2.0 GPA, or graduate in the top half of your class. So 2 out of those 3 things means you're good enough to get into an NAI school. And as I'm going through any of this stuff, parents or players, if you have questions, don't be afraid to unmute, cut me off, blurt out anything that's on your mind, and I'd be glad to answer those too. So again, like I said, this is just like the basic eligibility standards for the different divisions. All right. The kind of hidden part of all of this is the finances. And it's important to know going in is, number one, scholarships. Okay, so I want to go play at, UOP in Stockton. Well, that's great. They're a Division I school, costs about $55,000 to $60,000 a year to go there, but they have 12 scholarships to give out. So if you go watch one of Coach Colsey's games, you're going to notice they probably have about 20 players on their roster. So does that mean 8 girls are not getting any type of scholarship help? No, it just means that out of their 20 girls, they take those 12 scholarships and might split them up to where one girl is getting 60% of a full scholarship while another is getting 40%. So coaches have to get creative. So please don't go into this thinking if I get a scholarship, everything is paid for. Because as you can see at Division I, it's 12 scholarships. At Division II, it's 7.2. As I said, Division III does not give athletic scholarships, although they do a lot of academic money. And then at the NAI level, it's 10 scholarships, but they also have a lot of outside funding that allows them to get creative with their scholarships. And then one of the levels that we didn't talk about on the other pages is the National Junior Community College. So a lot of you may have heard of like Delta or Modesto Junior College. Those are California community college. They are not allowed to give scholarships, but they now have a system in place where your first 2 years are basically tuition free. But there are junior colleges outside of California that they can actually give scholarships just like Division I and II. And they have up to 24 full scholarships to give out. So there are junior colleges outside of our state that you could go to that you would probably pay nothing. And that includes, sometimes books and tuition and room and board. So another level to just, consider when you're looking at your schools. The other aspect of finances is being realistic with what it is that it's going to cost to actually go. So there's a thing called a net price calculator that just about every school should have. If you Google Stanford University net price calculator, it should take you to their site. And you enter in the information that pertains to you and your family, and it will give you basically the cost of what it would be to attend per year. And why is that important? Because as I talked about kind of earlier about the D1, how they split scholarships, when you get that phone call and they say, we'd like to offer you 60% of a scholarship, they're basing it on that cost of attendance number. So if it costs $30,000 a year to go to University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, and the coach calls and says, we're going to offer you 60%, well, that's $18,000. So you're still having to come up with another $12,000. And that's where you got to figure out, do you have funds coming from somewhere else? Can you get academic scholarships? So that's a big reality check, because unless you're that pitcher throwing, super hard, or that, really awesome shortstop that can play everywhere on the field, or, the kid who hits 20 home runs in a season, a full ride is probably honestly not going to happen. So you want to make sure you're going into this eyes wide open and knowing that, you probably will have to pay a little bit. Speaking from personal experience, that's what's happening with my family. My daughter was lucky enough to receive a couple of offers last week. She chose one, and, we sat down and did the math and figured out we're going to have some bills to pay the next 4 years. So just keep that part in mind. All right. When it's time to start communicating with coaches, like I said earlier, Division I, you can reach out to them all you want, but they cannot reach back out to you until September 1st of your junior year. Division II, they can actually reach out to you a few months earlier, June 15th of your junior year. And I can just tell from personal experience, I had Alicia Reed, the San Francisco State coach, on my staff this summer. She loves that June to September time because she can start reaching out and making that personal connection with athletes before September 1st, when the D1s jump in and try and take those players. So it is a cool time. And, it's one of those moments where, as players, you guys can also utilize that as a chance to get comfortable talking to college coaches, which is super important. And then the NAI level, there is no time limit. They can start calling you anytime. Something to keep in mind, coaches can receive messages, videos, transcripts, and give you instruction at camp. So, if you want to leave a voice message, hey, coach, just want to let you know, I just posted a video, would hope you check it out. That's great. Just don't expect them to get back to you. Okay. Utilizing sports recruits. And those of you that were on earlier, I was giving Rochelle tons of props because she is a sports recruit. She's on fire with it. But the one thing for you guys that are not juniors, like I said, I keep reiterating this, be patient, because your emails are getting read, but the coaches can't respond back to you until September 1st. So some of them are polite enough to send you a reply that says, hey, based on NCAA rule, blah, 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 we cannot correspond with you. But there are going to be many who it's just radio silence. You don't hear anything. You don't know what's going on. Keep going after it. Okay. Be creative. they don't always just want to hear from you when you have a tournament coming up. It's cool. I recommend those of you that have social media, go out and follow the teams that you're interested in, and be realistic again about those teams. And, if you're sending an email and you don't have a tournament coming up, but you saw the team did a really cool team bonding event on Facebook, then put it in an email. Hey, coach, saw what you guys just did this weekend. I would love to be a part of, that someday. Make it something other than just, hi, we have a tournament this weekend. Hope you can watch us. Send emails on a regular basis. Like I said, just not when you have games coming up. If you just took the SAT last weekend, go ahead and send them an email. Hey, Coach Smith, this is Sally, and I just wanted to let you know I took the SAT last week. When I get the scores, I'll make sure to send them to you. They want to know that you're thinking about them outside of just, oh, I have a tournament coming up. Here I go again. I need to email the same coaches. And then you are allowed to call or text if you have their number before 9/1, September 1st. You can let them know, hey, I just sent you an email. Hope you get it. Have a great day. Just something else that lets them know you're reaching out to them. And speaking of calling coaches, number one, try and plan a time where you think that they'll be in their office or be available. If you want to go to Alabama, okay, they're 3 hours ahead. So don't get done with your dinner at 6 o'clock and then say, I'm going to call Coach Murphy. It's 9 o'clock out there, he might be in bed. So keep that in mind. The other thing is, if you plan for when they should be in their office, you can try their cell if you have it, or call the office line. So you have multiple options. And be prepared when you call. Don't just pick up the phone and go, you know what? I feel like calling, Coach Inouye Perez at UCLA. I'm going to see what she says about me. And then she picks it up and you're like, oh, I didn't think she was going to pick up. What do I do? Be prepared. And like I said, the last slide, I think it is, or one of the last slides, I have a list of tons of great questions that are outside of the normal ones that you can ask. And don't ask about money on the first call. If you're lucky enough to get a phone call from a college coach or you reach out to them, those first few calls, they're trying to get to know you, find out what kind of person you are, see if you guys mesh, see if that's the kind of person they want to invest in. So keep money out of the picture. And last, this is a fun one. Be prepared in case you get a voice message, you have to leave a voicemail. I'm going to be honest, and some of the girls that are on the call may disagree with me, but I don't think that our teenagers today are comfortable talking on the phone with adults, let alone leaving a voicemail. So one of the things that I've recommended to my players is call your parents, have them hit decline, send you to voicemail, and practice leaving a voicemail on their phone. Because the first time that you have to do that, I guarantee if you haven't practiced, you're going to be stumbling through, and you're going to be like, hi, coach, this is, oh gosh, what am I supposed to ask? So practice it. We go out and practice our softball. We go practice it with our homework in school. Don't be afraid to practice your phone calls too. So that way you're ready. So just some advice with communicating with coaches. Next, so a lot of you are probably getting into that camp mode, trying to figure out, where do I go? What do I spend my money on? So it's really good to know the different types of camps. The first one is the institutional camps. Those are the ones that are on campus. Those you can often find on the school website. And I'm going to say from experience, they're probably your best return on investment in terms of costs and what you get for it. And then our next one is the third party. So Eddie, you guys went to Colorado this year, right? Or anyone?
Yes, we did.
So you guys probably, most of you got those emails about camps that were out there. And those are great because, oh, cool, I got to go to the Oregon camp, and it was Oregon and North Dakota State. Well, I don't want to call them money grabs, but it's really hard to be out there with 60 kids and 2 sets of coaches and, they're out there to make a little money before the tournaments start. So that's not a bad one if you are going to make sure that you stand out. If you are going to go and hope to stand out, you probably are better off waiting until there's a camp on their campus. And then, of course, we have the private organization camps like the ones Debbie runs. Those are instructional, the Nike softball camps, things like that. So some reasons just to make sure that you understand why you need to go to these. The biggest thing for a lot of you guys is the chance to meet coaches and be in front of them before September 1st. You want to try and find a way to get on their radar, let them know what you can do, let them see what you can do, so that hopefully on September 1st, you're lucky enough to get a few phone calls. And then you also get coaching from the coaches that you hope to play for one day. So understand that those are, should be some motivations to go to these things. While you're there, take your strengths and show them off. If you're super fast, every time you get a chance to run somewhere, go do it. If you have a great arm, every time you get a chance to throw that ball, throw it as hard as you can. Just make sure that you are showing what you're really good at. And then at the end, find a way to make sure that they know you. Don't be afraid to walk up and say, hey, you know what, coach, I'd like to, keep you updated with our stuff. Could I get your, number so that I could text you? Or even the assistant coach, find a way so that you are staying in their mind. And then, of course, thank coaches with an email afterwards or a call. When you're at the camp, just a couple reminders: run, don't walk. Clean up stations. I mean, this is one of the coolest things that I've seen at some camps as kids that I wouldn't have expected, because they don't really do much help. But my practices are like the first ones out there helping clean up at camps, which is awesome. Make eye contact and thank the coaches. So I know you guys have done a few showcases. I don't know if anybody's really talked to you guys about showcases and what to do and what to expect. So I just threw this one in there. Make sure before you go to a showcase, number one, try and find somewhere where it says who is actually going to be there. And then another one is, don't be afraid to look at schools near where the tournament's being held. And to reach out to those coaches. I'm in the process right now of working with one of my players. When we went out to the Mojo camp over the summer in Tennessee, there was 2 schools that my shortstop was really interested out there. And I apologize if I looked distracted a little while ago. I was actually texting the Tennessee Tech coach because she's interested in going there. And she just looked at the schools around where we were playing, emailed them. Belmont and Tennessee Tech came out and watched a couple of our games. And, those are schools that weren't listed as coming to the camp because they're just local schools that dropped in. So that's another great way to get yourself out there with schools in the area. Make sure you're sending out your schedule and a little note to the coaches before the tournament so that they know where you're at when you're playing. And then the biggest one is let your coach know who you've reached out to. Eddie, do you guys have a liaison?
We currently do not right now, but I need to talk to the parents about this. I'm going to set up a meeting for our parents to talk regarding all the recruiting and the help that we're going to need for it.
So you're the liaison.
Yeah.
So it's important to let Coach Eddie know who you've reached out to ahead of time when you're going to a showcase, because, if you've emailed University of, Southern Oregon and Coach Pardue comes walking up to the backstop, you want Coach Eddie to know, oh, okay, I got to let Jane play, I got to find a way to get her in because this school probably came to see her. But if you're not talking to your coaches, how are they to know, who you've reached out to and why some people show up to games? So, and then keep in mind, these coaches that are coming out, they're not looking for players to be perfect. They're not looking for them to hit home runs every time. They actually, from what I've gathered, talking to a bunch of them over the years, they want to see teams play to win. So if, you have a mediocre runner and she's not your pitcher or catcher, hey, go ahead and let her run. Coaches need to see, all of your skills, and play to win. don't just go in there, thinking it's a showcase and nobody cares. They want to see that fire, that competitiveness from all of you guys when you're playing every time. And then support your teammates who may have a coach watching. Coaches look to see people who are great teammates, not just great players, because only 9 people can play at a time. Most college rosters carry up to 20 players. So that's 11 girls who are going to have to understand what it takes to be a great teammate. And then, of course, after the tournament, try and get a list from Coach Eddie of the schools that were there so that you can follow up and thank them for coming and watching your team play. All right, so recruiting activities.
Hey, Coach, just going into that whole money grab or anything like that, just talking about it. Is it important for the team to make a decision on what we're trying to find, what we're looking for as a team? So that way we don't go to tournaments or showcases where, let's say, the colleges we're actually looking for aren't there.
Give me an example.
Like, let's say all our girls decide, you know what, we're more shooting for a D2 type of experience with college, but we're going to D1 showcases, or we're going to the wrong showcases. That's what I'm trying to ask. I also know that based off of the call we had the other day, a lot of these things are called showcases, but really no college coaches show up. So it's a lot of homework that has to be done on our side to make sure that where we're going is where our girls are actually being looked at by the right colleges.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Eddie. I think one of the things that with showcases is you as a coaching staff hopefully have a good grasp of your players and a reality check of what level you think that would be beneficial, and trying to put them, your job as a coach and so the parents and players here is to try and put them in the best position possible to win and be seen by coaches that they can go play at. So there's nothing wrong with going to a Superior showcase by Dan Pearson if the NAIA's Division II levels is where a lot of the players would probably be seen at. I can tell you right now, girls, if you're good enough to play Division I, and just because your team's going to a Superior showcase tournament, then show why you're good enough to play Division I, because a lot of times those Division II coaches have friends at the Division I level, and Alicia Reed might say, well, you know what, that player is special, and I have a friend at San Jose State, and I'm going to give them a call and say, you need to come and look at this kid. So don't ever let the showcase dictate your level of play, but also keep in mind that the coaches are putting you in the ones that they feel are right for your team. And I know Coach Eddie's reached out to me and Coach Debbie, and Coach Brian and Rob about showcases, and so he's doing his homework too. So please feel comfortable that you guys are going to the right places. All right, so on your guys' end, so one of the those that I recommend is setting up some kind of schedule for yourselves. As they say, those who fail those who fail to plan, or no one ever plans to fail, but most people fail to plan. So get yourself some kind of schedule that you're going to put together that says, this is when I'm going to work on my recruiting. You put together a training schedule, you put together a batting practice schedule, you put together a pitching schedule. Recruiting needs to be put into that now. And then document your activity. All that means is basically make sure you know who you've emailed. You don't want to send an introduction email 3 or 4 times to the same school, because then they're going to realize, okay, this kid's just sending out mass emails and we really aren't on their list. They aren't interested. They're just doing their part, sending emails. I can, without saying names, and it's not a player on my team, thank goodness, or I'd be having a serious talk with her, but there's a player in our org who sends about 40 emails, it seems like, every time they play. And as I said earlier, I get to see everybody's sports recruits, and this girl had 4 or 5 emails exchanged with a certain school, and they seemed like they were pretty close to making her an offer. And then it was silent for a long time. And then I looked today and she sends another introduction email to the same coach. Hi, this is blah, blah, blah. I play for this team in All-American Sports Academy. And I'm thinking, No, they already know who you are. So make sure that you're keeping that, you're keeping tabs of that. In bold there, a couple things that I just want to point out. I know personally, myself and my daughter messed up on one of these. The other one I've seen way too much on sports recruits. Send it to the right schools. That means if you're sending out regular emails, I'm going to tell you guys, there is the secret that I don't recommend of cut and paste. But if you're going to cut and paste, make sure that you are, number one, changing the coaches' names at the top, and anywhere in the email, you're changing it to the school that you're actually emailing to. I know with my daughter and I, we did that one time and we forgot to change the signature line at the bottom. And so at the bottom, it said Go Mocs instead of Stingers Up. So that was kind of embarrassing coming from the coach's daughter, but live and learn. And that school still called her, so I guess it was okay. And then know the coaches. One of the things that is important in my mind is when I'm reading these emails that people are sending, Stanislaus State, for example, has no head coach right now. I just saw a couple girls email Stanislaus State and email coach Jess Ventosa. Well, Jess isn't there anymore. So, and then, people were still emailing on sports recruits to Linda Garza at Fresno State. She's now at Nevada Reno. So please, please, please make sure that you know who the coaches are and don't just email a school. And then,
Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
Being mute for a lot of our girls being new to a lot of this. Do we have some kind of examples that we can maybe put together? Again, teach these girls not to copy and paste, because if all of a sudden they're seeing the same email come from every All-American girl, they're going to know that we're just being generic instead of creating their own thing. Is there anything we can, just a couple examples that we can maybe get from you so we can show these girls what we're looking for, and then, just to correct, making sure the grammar is correct, making sure all that's ready to go, and then making it somehow your own.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's necessarily a stock one, because I think that then even if I gave a couple of stock ones that you just make personal, it still is going to give that same feel. Some emails, you guys, can be as short as a couple sentences. Some of them can be, 3 or 4 paragraphs. At the end of the day, when you sit down to write emails, you need to figure out, what is it that I'm trying to share with the coach this email, and how do I go about doing it? If it's an introduction email, you need to sit down and let them know who you are. I mean, don't be afraid to write a mini book. If it's a follow-up email to just let them know you're playing, it could be hey coach, we're going to, Legacy Fast Pitch this week in Manteca. Here's our game times. I'm going to keep you updated after the weekend. So I don't necessarily think that there's a stock one. I think it's just making sure that you have a plan before you send out the email each time, if that makes sense. But I'd be glad to share a couple of the ones that, I'll use my daughters as examples. Maybe if we have time at the end, I can even get into sports recruits and, take a look at a couple of the ones that she sent out along the way.
Thank you.
And then create a list. I recommend 3 categories. Have your dream schools, and then, have your non-Power 5 type schools, and then your D2 and D3 schools or NAI. 3 in each, or 10 in each category. And be thoughtful. Don't just think, oh, these guys are on TV all the time, that's where I want to go. I keep putting her on the spot because I know she's further along in this process, but like Rochelle said, she picked a lot of these schools that she's emailing based on majors. That's awesome, because you're going to school to get a degree, so you need to find a place that offers, what it is that you want to study. So keep that in mind. And then create a skills video. It doesn't have to. I love Fast Pitch Media. I love Randy. He does a great job. But some of you can go out with a phone and, video yourself, taking ground balls. There's a school that sent me an email the other day that said, hey, can you ask this kid for just 5 minutes of unedited infield fielding video work? Because we just want to see her in action, fielding balls. So you have the ability on Sports Recruits to add as much video as you want. I don't recommend overloading it. Clean it out every once in a while. So that way, you have just some really good stuff on there and, important stuff. Okay. Next, use the info from the camp information page, and get to camps. And then make sure again that you are keeping Coach Eddie in the loop on all of this. All right. So it means if you're sending an email, don't be afraid. If it's on Sports Recruits, Eddie, you get blind CC'd on all of those, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So if you're sending and using Sports Recruits, which I recommend, then he gets those and he sees who you're emailing. But if you're using your personal email, just blind CC him or even CC him so he knows, who you're emailing and what camps you're going to. Okay. All right. Social media, the big thing that's not going away. So we might as well get used to it. So Melissa asks, is it okay to have lots of videos on your news feed or should you delete older ones? I wouldn't leave a bunch of older ones on there, but I would leave some because it does allow coaches to see your growth, and so a coach can look at one and see the date from a couple of years ago and go, okay, wow, this kid has gotten better, but if you've kind of stayed stale and your skills were really good when you started and they're still at that same level, then you may want to delete some of those because, it doesn't show as much growth. So yeah, but you definitely don't want to overload it and overwhelm them and have them look and see an entire video library and, have to try and figure out which one do I click on. And make sure those videos have really, I don't know, cool names so that they know what it is that they're looking at. All right, social media. So I'm sure most of you guys on here know that, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all that stuff, it's not going anywhere. And a lot of you guys have it, which is fine. I'm not here to say delete it all right now and, only stick to writing emails because social media is a big factor in the recruiting process now. But again, you've probably heard this a million times. What you post is permanent. You might think that, you posted something and you realized, oh man, I shouldn't have posted that. By the time you go to delete it, could have been screenshot, sent out to a prospective coach. Coach could have seen it, all that stuff. So be aware that what you post it's there forever, even though you might delete it. Coaches can and will follow you, or they will have an assistant coach follow you. I know for a while at UOP, their basketball program had a coach that was designated to follow prospective student athletes. So don't get afraid either if you see a coach starts following you. One of the things that I think is a bad stigma too is that on your social media, it has to be all softball. Coaches can also look at your social media to see what kind of kid you are, to see that you have a social life, to see that, you did go out and get dressed up for homecoming and you looked amazing in your dress and you had fun. Just remember that you are representing yourself to the outside world. So keep it positive, keep it respectful. And again, if you have a softball only account for your social media, it doesn't mean that they might not be able to find your other ones. So I know there's people who have multiple social media accounts and think, oh, they'll only look at my softball one. In terms of tagging coaches, I know this is a highly debated topic, and I'm just going to share with you the 3 most important things that I've got from talking to college coaches. Number 1, for some coaches, they enjoy it because it helps you and your name get in front of them a lot easier. Whenever you tag a coach, they get notified that they've been tagged. So you are putting yourself out there for them to say, okay, let's see what, they posted this time. So it's a lot easier than, way back in the old days when I was going through the recruiting process and you had to create your highlights on a VHS tape. And then you had to find somebody who had another VCR and make a copy of that tape and then send it in a big bulky package. You guys have it made. You can just put a couple things in your phone and boom, it's off to the world. The other thing about tagging coaches is it lets them know that you're interested in them and their school. On the flip side, And especially with Twitter, because there's limitations, is it can show other schools that you aren't interested. If you don't tag them, then they may think, well, okay, they don't want to come to school here. The other thing with like Twitter is because of the limitations, you could end up, they could read into it as, oh, I'm on the retweet because there wasn't that there wasn't enough spots in the initial tweet, but they could say, okay, she was putting the schools in her order of interest. We're not in her top, so let's move on to somebody else. So little things that can be read into, and it could be read wrong, but you have to keep that in mind. I've recommended tagging certain people like I Heart Fast Pitch, Flow Softball, Extra Innings Softball, things like that, that will in turn retweet your stuff. And that way you're not tagging schools, but plenty of schools follow them. Post a lot of video. Post it on your social media, so that way it's not always taking up your spot on Sports Recruits. And then please, this is one that I've heard multiple times the last few months. Highlight your team and how they did over the weekend before you talk about yourself. Too many kids, and if you go and scroll on Twitter right now and look at a bunch of softball kids from last weekend, most of them are saying, great weekend with my team. I went 7 for 10 with 3 home runs and 14 RBIs. Coaches want to see that you're a teammate. So I would start that by saying, great time with my team. We went 5 and 2 and finished 4th place. I did pretty well and hit, 7 for 10. Put the team before me, and you'll probably score a few extra brownie points with some coaches. Okay. This is the slide that I was talking to you guys at the beginning that I'm not going to go through all 19 questions, but by recording this and putting this onto our little YouTube page and sharing with you guys, you'll have the ability to go back to this one. But when you do get the chance to talk to coaches, please be yourself. If you're a goofy, giggly kid, don't try and be all professional and hide it from the coach and, make them think that they're talking to the wall. Have a personality, be you. Because like I said, they're trying to get to know you. They want to know if they want to be around you for the next 4 years. And then having those questions ready. Here it is. There's 19 different questions here, because I don't ever want an All-American Academy kid to talk to a coach. And the first thing they say is, do you have any questions? And they say, yeah, what does a normal day look like for your athletes? Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, it's wake up, go to weights, go to school, go to practice, go to study hall, go home, do it again the next day. That's a typical schedule. It may change a little bit depending on what level you're at, but that's it. So find more creative questions, and be prepared on the phone. I had a coach, at an Ivy League school that called one of our 18 gold players last year. And when I followed up with her, just because I knew her, she said it was one of the worst conversations I had. They didn't seem like they knew anything about our school, knew anything about Division I, and it really was a turnoff. So be prepared for when those coaches do call. And last one, sorry. Just some recommendations of some do's and don'ts. And this is just kind of a recap. So number one, develop that thought out college list. That's that thing that we were saying, get your different levels. Set up a consistent time each week to work on recruiting. Don't just randomly say, okay, I haven't done it in a while, now it's time to do it. Be realistic with your schools. I know everybody's chasing D1 or chasing as the best they can, but don't be afraid to look at some other levels. And again, be open to all levels. Important thing to keep in mind, especially for you guys as you're at this age group, keep in mind that people are watching you guys all the time. You guys are wearing the All-American logo, so that does mean something in itself. But there might be a person out of the tournament who is best friends with Coach Perez at Sac State, and she may say, hey, you're going to that tournament this week, would you mind watching Maddie this weekend? And they're there when you get there, and they see you open the car door yelling at your mom and then making your mom carry your bag to the field because you're in a bad mood because it's 8 a.m. Those are the kinds of things that people that may not take into account. So from the moment you get in out of the car till you leave the field, just think somebody might be watching. Attend camps at the schools that you love. I'm going to tell you right now, my daughter's fortunate enough to have committed this week to University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. And a big part of that was because she went to a couple camps there and fell in love with it even more. And then being in front of those coaches, she was able to get that relationship built. And I believe that attending the camps at the schools is very important.
That's
Again,
what I was just about to ask you, the difference between attending them when you're at a showcase compared to attending them at a school. Those are the ones you recommend at the school, not the ones at the showcase, right?
correct. Yep. And then keep your grades up like we talked about. And then don'ts, don't be inflexible so that you miss your opportunities. Don't cause yourself to be unrecruitable due to social media. Speaking of social media, be cautious because you might have a friend that tags you in something that's inappropriate. If somebody does, please just ask them, hey, can you remove me or remove that tag? And don't believe schools will pursue you. I hate to put it that way, but just if you understand that it's a few select kids who schools will go after, the rest have to put in work. And the rest have to go and be advocates for themselves. They have to go to the camps. They have to put in the time and effort. So don't just sit back and go, oh, they're going to come and find me, because it may not be the case. If you've ever had a chance to see my team, my first baseman is a 22, and she's probably, she's the best first baseman in our organization. I'll say it right now, but she's not going anywhere because she sat back and felt that schools would come and find her. And now, she's frustrated with the process, and we've tried to explain to her, you got to be just as much of the process as the schools. So don't sit back waiting for them to come to you. And lastly, do not get frustrated with the process. Control the controllables. All right. So with that, I have some time for some questions. So if you have any, go ahead and unmute yourself and fire away. Trust me, after the first question gets asked, it gets a lot easier. So don't be shy to be the first person to ask something.
How often should we schedule time for recruitment?
So I'd recommend once a week. I had somebody the other day ask about, is sending emails like twice a week too much, or somebody even asked twice a day. It's nice to check in with the coaches, but you don't want to overdo it. I don't know if there's a way to overdo it, but I'm sure that there is. I had a girl on my team who was sending emails probably twice a week, and it got to the point that the coach actually emailed back and said, okay, Marissa, I know who you are now. You don't have to send so many. So I would say once a week, just to do like some check-in and, just make sure that you're keeping your name in their minds.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Okay, I am on, so I'm going to find one and then share this here with you guys. So all right, here's one example. I know Coach Eddie had asked about emails and templates and stuff. So here's one of the first ones that my daughter sent to Southern Oregon University. As you can see, the thing with sports recruits is you can have all the coaching staff on the email, I would recommend if you're going to do that, to just make sure that you put them all in the heading. They are going to get this email separately, but you'll have all their names on it so they know who you send it to. I like, I recommend starting off the first paragraph talking about the school or the coaches first. So, these guys just, Southern Oregon was just at the NAI World Series when she wrote this. And then she introduced herself, said who she was, what grade she's in, what position she plays. We just finished high school ball, so she put her high school stats in there. Then she talked about where we're playing that weekend. Eddie, do you guys stream your games?
Yes, we're experimenting on trying to figure out which direction we're going to go in, though. So we've been
Okay.
playing with different cameras right now.
Okay, so she put she put in there that our team uses Athletes Go Live, so she put that information, and then she put the rest of the summer schedule. So that's kind of an example of a get to know you type email. And then she, let's see, so here's another one to Southern Oregon, and she just giving an update on how we did in the tournament and what's next. She the one thing I'd recommend, create a little bit of a signature line, name, class, position, what team you're on. Later on, we added her phone number because it'd be nice when it is time for coaches to be able to call, that they have a way to get a hold of you. So just like I said, I don't think that there should be a stock email that says this is what you should do. It's about putting in there what you want them to know and what you want them to hear. And most of the emails do have her name and her grad year, but they have, the subject's different. Colorado update, she's coming to camp, Zoom into June update. So, those are the types of things. And you can see, here's a kid that she had her list of about 15 schools. And for a while, it was the same people that she was emailing. It was University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Dixie State, Sac State, Boise State, Southern Oregon, Tennessee, Chattanooga, and then you can see as we get up here, it started to narrow down to the schools that had reached out to her. So as your lists, start big and then start to narrow it down as you go a little bit further along in the process.
I had a bunch of questions.
Mark,
I can't
you
think of
still
them right
awake?
now.
Mark, you still awake? You're muted though. Just making sure, Mark. I know it's past your bedtime.
Girls, any questions that you guys have, this is the right time to start asking them. Don't be shy. Remember what we always talk about. The only dumb question is when you don't ask. As silly as you think it may be, it might help someone out or it might help you out for some type of answer that you're looking for.
And those of you that are being shy, my email address is really, really easy. It's AASAPicus, just like my last name on the screen, @gmail.com. I'm here for you guys too. People for a long time, I've heard people like, Taco, all he was worried about is, getting his kid recruited, but you guys are all my kids. Every single time an All-American kid is committed to somewhere, I get pumped up because, it just means you guys are getting an opportunity to go to the next level. And that's what we're about. So write my email down, save it. If anything comes up at all, I am a resource for you guys. Like Coach Eddie said, Rochelle's a little further along. We're going to get a hold of her list and see if we can, reach out to some of those schools too. But when you guys start putting your list together, if you want to email Coach Eddie and I and say, hey, how does this look? I have no problem working with Coach Eddie and saying, okay, what do you think? You know, is this a good, realistic approach? So utilize us. That's what we're here for.
Yep, I'm always here for you girls. You know that.
All right. Well, you guys have my email. You have Eddie's contact. I know you guys see him a bunch. So if there's no other questions, I will say thank you guys for your time and good luck this fall. And, you know, I do follow along to see how you guys are doing. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you. guys.
Carl.
Whatever, Mark.